As of the 1st of September 2013, there were 609 current and former NFL players still in therapy with what is known as fear of Brian Dawkins. That shows exactly why. Amazing recollections of a fabulous career, but I think what makes that career so special is what came before, because Brian Dawkins on the field, Brian Dawkins now a very different person and an incredibly different space to the Brian Dawkins who started out. If you can take us back to that story, to growing up, and for me what's always really interesting is when that light bulb went off and when you thought football could be more than just a bit of fun. Football could actually be something quite special for me.
Yeah, for me, I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. That's where I was born and raised. And in Jacksonville, sports is huge. I mean, Friday nights, high school football, so football was a huge part of that. And one of the reasons I became an athlete was because of my father, first of all. He was a coach. He coached Little League football and basketball. And sports was a safe haven for me because of the neighborhood that I grew up in. It wasn't the worst of neighborhoods. I'm not going to say that it was the worst, but it was a tough place. It was a tough place where you knew who to hang out with, you knew what time to get into the house, and you knew where not to be. And so for me, sports was that place that I can go. Growing up, I lost two of my best friends to gun violence. They both were selling drugs at different times in my life. And so I had to make a choice and make a decision who I was going to hang out with and who I was going to be around. And the fact that sports was there for me, football was there for me, that I can go play the game, I can go play basketball, I can spend my time doing something constructive with my energy. As you saw, I have a lot of energy. It's still here. It's just bottled up. I can control it. But that game allowed me to focus. It taught me how to control my emotions. I was always an emotional young man. Growing up, if we lose game, I was the first one to be crying. I didn't want to shake people's hands after games, all that sportsmanship. I didn't want sportsmanship. We just lost. I don't want to be around nobody. But that was my emotions. And it took my father to sit me down to understand, first of all, you're making the right decisions about not hanging around certain people. But the other thing is controlling that part of you that's different from a lot of people. A lot of people don't have that type of emotion, that type of exuberance to be able to do the things that I did the way that I did it. And so I had to begin to channel that into the right direction. And what happened was I didn't call myself this back then. I tell people that I can flip a switch. When I crossed into the stadium, it was almost like a gladiator movie. I know you guys have seen a gladiator movie. When you cross into that, I felt like I was flipping that switch, and I became what I call now idiot man, all right? See, idiot man goes into the football field, and he does what he wants to do when he wants to do it, and he has a good time no matter what anybody was saying. And because of sports, I was able to now harness all of that emotion, go out and play a game, get paid for it, bless my family with it, and then have a stage to be able to bless a lot of young people along the way, different organizations along the way, with the so-called fame that football brought me. But it all started with sports. Had it not been for sports, I wouldn't be sitting here with you. I wouldn't be talking about playing the game. I don't know, I may not have been able to control or contain the emotions that I have inside, but because of sports, I'm able to do it. Because of my father being in my life to bless me, I'm able to do it. And because of coaches along the way that also helped me to harness that, I'm able to do it.
Over the last few days, we've been exposed to some extraordinary projects doing remarkable work right around the world. This is another very powerful addition to that narrative. Not just doing incredible work, but I know at a personal level, it's meant so much to you, seeing it not only get going, but also more importantly, seeing it actually work, Will.
Yeah, it's a fascinating project, and a bit like Brian, all I ever wanted to do was win on a sports field. All I wanted to do was just get out there and beat my opponent. And that was me in my professional career, playing for England, representing England in a World Cup final. Just nothing other than victory would suffice. And I sort of initially, 6-7 years ago when we first started this show, that's sort of the mentality I wanted to take in to these young men, most of whom had never played rugby. And yet, over the course of the first couple of years, everything's sort of just been slightly flipped on its head to understand that it's so much more than the rugby. And there's a little chap at the end who was saying, "Thanks for getting me wrong." And that young man's name is Demetrius. And he has no right to be a rugby player. He is 5'2" and about, I know you work in pounds over here, but he's about 50 kilos. So he weighs about 110 pounds. There's not a lot to him. He has no right to be on a rugby field. But every time he got knocked down, he got back up because there was the promise of a job. There was a promise of employment. I talked to you about him because he came from a broken family. His father lived 200 yards from that sports field where we played that final game in one direction. His mother lived 200 yards the other way. This was his greatest moment in sport. This was a moment where he was picked to play in a team with people he'd never met before, 8 weeks before. And did his parents turn up to watch that game? No. Neither of them could be bothered. They had a TV show to watch or something was going on, and they didn't show up. And it just sort of picks up what Brian was talking about just there. He immediately talked about his father. He immediately talked about that parental role model figure, which I had, which clearly Brian had, which clearly a lot of the programs that are involved in Beyond Sport around the world are offering. And that's one of the keys to, I think, what most of the programs are trying to give, just allowing to be kids again, just allowing kids to forget about their background, what's going on, the troubles. You talked about going onto the pitch. We call it crossing the white line. When you cross that white line on a rugby field, you need each other. You've got to work with each other no matter what shape, size, postcode, wherever it is you come from, you're one team. And then over the course of 6 or 7 years, we have seen real and lasting changes on people's lives. And now, you ask my wife, I still work in professional sport, but what's my favourite time of each year? The 3 months I've spent each year for the past 6 years, starting in North Wales, then Liverpool, then East London, where the Olympics took place, then South London, then North London, where Tottenham, the riots took place, and now most recently in Glasgow, where I worked in a place where, unbelievable, Glasgow, we think of Glasgow being sort of a part of the development, and of course it is, a fantastic place, fantastic city, but there were some parts of Glasgow where I was working where the age of death is 49. 49, we take that for granted that you go on now to 75, 80. And the kids, one of the guys this year, a guy called Darren, has been stabbed 17 times. And he has a tattoo on his back that says, better luck next time. So these are the sorts of characters that we're trying to deal with, we're trying to help, we're trying to give hope to, and an opportunity to, which I think is what everyone's talking about today. Using sport to give people hope and an opportunity. And it's a tremendous project that I'm very lucky to be involved with.
One of the critical areas of your success has been the team and bringing those players together. Brian, if you look at your team, when you first moved in, when you got drafted, when you first came into that team environment, talk us through that introduction to professional sport and now being part of that team environment from someone who, as you say, was quite fiercely independent, how that brought you into a better player, a stronger player, and started to give you the platform for the success you eventually had.
Well, the thing about it is you're taught a lot of things, even in Pop Warner, about team, about the importance of team. Together everybody achieves more. I learned that from a little chap. Together everybody achieves more. Team, and so I understand the significance of team, and so my whole thing was to always do everything that I could to make sure that I was ready for the game. And what happened along the way is you go through peaks and valleys in your life. Life, as sports is happening, life is going on. Life is happening. And in life, you go through different challenges and different circumstances. And what I believe took me to the pinnacle of who I've become today was my rookie year. My rookie year, I went through a lot. I went through about a depression. I was taking medicine for depression that caused me to have suicidal thoughts. And so going through that time in my life, my faith kicked into another level. And that took me to another person. The person that I didn't know existed inside of me began to come out through adversity, through my faith, through me believing in something. My faith allowed me to get off the medicine I was on. And then the care for other people went to another level. Me wanting to then pour into my teammates, me wanting to talk to other people outside of the game. Whenever I got the opportunity to share about anything that would help somebody out, to encourage them, to strengthen them in an area that they may be weak in, even to the point of doing different things, whether it be the battered wives shelter here in Philadelphia, the orphanages here in Philadelphia, I began to spend my time, not just my resources, but my time to go and spend time and hopefully bring awareness to those different places and also love on the people there. So it took me to another level in my passion. And I believe that we all have gifts. We're all blessed with different talents. But it's where your passion is, to me, is where your gift lies. Because if you're just doing things because you think people would like it, are you really passionate about that? And are you really going to give all of yourself to that into that endeavor? But when you have a passion for something and you love the people that you're loving on, you're going to go up above and beyond with your time, with your care, with your love, with your words, with your number, giving it out, and making sure they have a safe haven to be able to talk about different circumstances. So it wasn't high school. I learned mistakes. It wasn't college. Blessed to go there. But my rookie year, when I went through what I went through at that time, I made a decision at that point. I'm not going to take my life. I'm going to give my life, and I'm going to give it to my faith, and I'm going to give it to my teammates and the people that are around me to another level.
We all know the platform that laid for footballing success, and there's an enormous amount of passion in this particular room. There's also a lot of courage, which is our theme today, and that's slightly ironic because anybody who was at Beyond Rugby yesterday will know that Will spent most of the afternoon talking about how scared he was of Serge Betsen, the French international, who used to spend 80 minutes chasing him around a rugby field every time they played. But on that subject of courage, we can be fairly flippant about it, but if I look at particularly that Rugby World Cup, rugby guys, as with footballers, you're big guys, you're physical, you're used to getting stuck in, but there must have been times, and I'm sure the Rugby World Cup and that final is a prime example, where despite your physique, despite your size, despite your experience, you were a very scared man.
I think that's one of the great myths about professional sports people, about guys who play contact sports, that they don't understand or feel fear. That physical feeling of being sick 2 or 3 hours before a game, the nerves, the butterflies just churning around. And we usually do a metaphor that you can't try and turn those butterflies into dragons. But I'll always stand here and say, courage isn't the absence of fear. I think that's one of the great lies. Courage isn't it's the ability to triumph over that fear. The brave man isn't the guy who never feels fear. It's the guy who comes together with his teammates and can conquer that fear. And it doesn't matter whether you're playing for the all-time great Philadelphia Eagles. It doesn't matter whether you're playing for England in a World Cup final or you're playing for my team in School of Hard Knocks in Tottenham. There's that same feeling, and that's what sport can give you. And we were privileged to be at the very peaks of our career, playing in front of hundreds of thousands of people. What we feel through sport, we can allow people from different backgrounds, of different talent, of different skill sets, to understand and feel that feeling of togetherness. Because let me tell you one thing, there is nothing, I've spent my life since I've finished playing professional rugby, chasing that feeling of togetherness in an office. I don't want to explode the myth. If you work in an office, it's tough to find it. It really is tough to backslap and hug and get there and cry and be emotional. Most of the time you get sacked. But, sorry, can you stop pestering the lady in block 4? But in a rugby field, you get to come together and just be a team, irrespective of your background and where you've come from. And that's what we try and give through sport. And I think that's one of the underlying themes that comes through everything that everyone's talking about today. Is sport gives you that feeling of togetherness that I don't think anything can. And just very briefly to touch, I know we're here about courage, and just to very briefly touch on that World Cup final that I played in against Australia. We were in Australia, who are a fantastic side. We were in their Olympic Stadium. This was their backyard. This was where they were supposed to win. And I'm in a changing room with 14 other guys who are looking at each other in the eye, and you're giving a sort of a physical, a mental, you're making a visual contract with each other that you will not leave that field without expounding every single piece of energy, giving absolutely everything you've got to leave that field, to have that feeling that no matter who you could offer us in the world, you wouldn't swap anyone. And just to give kids an insight to that, an insight to sport, I think is one of the great gifts that sport has. Because then you will go out and you will do anything for the guy on your left and the guy on your right. Because without them on a sports field, you are nothing. That collaboration means it is everything for success.
That inspiration is so important to so many of the people in this room and what they're doing with their various projects. And the good times, we're on a real high at the moment. It's been a fabulous few days, but it's not always so good. It's not always so easy. You came out on the right side of a World Cup final. Brian, you're not going to like me for this, but I'm going to take you back to February 6, 2005, back to Jacksonville, Florida. It should have been the perfect homecoming. It wasn't quite. Super Bowl 24-21. You ended up losing to the Patriots. You've shown quite clearly that you're not terribly fond of losing.
No.
How did you come out of that? How did you respond? And how did you use that as a lesson to try and to try and learn from it and to come back a stronger person?
Well, we all know that adversity is a part of life, and how do you deal with it? It's not so much that you get knocked down as when you get knocked down, what do you do with that knowledge, the wisdom that you've received from being knocked down, and go forward with it? It wasn't just about me at that time. I was up in, might have been like my seventh or eighth year in the league. So at that point now, I have other guys truly looking up to me or looking at me for leadership. Because when we go down like that, if I just lose and go off the handle, it's okay for everybody to do that. So I have to handle myself in a certain way. I have to, once again, as I talked about earlier, I have to be able to contain my emotions in order to make sure that we go on the right path going forward. But it was tough. But once again, what happened to me early on prepared me for times such as that. Going through what I went through early on, some of the situations that I had going on, it taught me that. I'll give you an example. When I left Clemson, and this is before the true enlightenment. When I left Clemson, I had a partner around. He was a rookie. Excuse me, he was a freshman at Clemson, and I graduated to come to the NFL to be with the Philadelphia Eagles. And before I left there, I told him, I said, listen, I'm looking at you. You might can be the best safety to ever play at Clemson, but you're lazy. You won't work, and you're lazy. 4 years into the league, I was able to get in contact with him. He sought me out, and he was already at the tail end of his career. And he told me something, and he said, man, I watched you. I watched you before you left. I watched how you handled yourself in different situations, and I wish I would have modeled myself after you. I wish I would have listened to what you said. So it taught me then that other people are watching me. Everything that I did, they were watching me. They were watching how do I handle myself. So then when I got to the Patriots, we lost the game. I made sure that I told the guys in the locker room that you will see me and you will see my physique, and I will be more defined. I will be bigger. I will be hopefully faster. So I'm going to make sure I'm doing everything this offseason to come back even better for this next year. And I'm asking you, matter of fact, I'm encouraging you. Matter of fact, I'm telling you to make sure you're doing the same for yourself so we come back and make another run at it.
And Brian's spot on. Brian wouldn't be here without sport. I wouldn't be here without sport. If there was no such thing as those things you have underneath your feet or are holding right now, if there wasn't a ball invented, I have absolutely no idea what I'd have done with my life. And it's taken me all around the world to meet some special people. I'm here sat in Philadelphia talking about sport. I love the School of Hard Knocks. I will continue to support it. And there's just one little message I have for you guys who are involved in all these projects. Because I'm sure some of you are thinking, all those projects are amazing. It seems to come easy. My goodness me, I bet everyone who's involved in these projects at some stage in time wants to bang their head against the wall, wants to give up, wants to walk away, and wants to say, what am I doing this for? But you're sat in a room of people who keep getting up off the floor, and have the ability to drive those projects through to a completion. And without you guys, so many of these special projects wouldn't happen. So don't be frustrated if you find obstacles, if you find hurdles. Organizations like Beyond Sport are here to help you get over those hurdles, knock down those obstacles, and fulfill your dream in whatever area, whatever age or sex of children you decide to work with, to help you fulfill your objective of giving these children hope.
Can I say something real quick?
Please do.
Because that led me down this path. I mean, I can be honest with you when I say this. When I was first asked about being an ambassador for Philadelphia, I'm like, okay. I went down the list, and one of the first ones I saw was Dikembe, all right? You know, Dikembe has built a hospital, all right? Listen, a hospital. He has built a hospital. And so I'm like, I'm okay. Well, there's no way that I can't be on a panel with this dude but it's not about measuring yourself up to what somebody else is doing, because if you're doing something from your heart, I believe that you're doing the right thing. You're doing it from a good place. And the thing that, when you were telling your story, that just clicked to me is the fact that, you know, my beautiful wife, she's not here right now, but she's not as tall as I am, all right? And sometimes she's in the kitchen and she has to reach something up high. She gets a little frustrated. She has to call me in, and I have to bring it down for her. Well, that's what Beyond Sports does to us, the little dreams that become big dreams. Because of the reach of Beyond Sport, it allows you to reach further than what you could do by yourself. It gives you wisdom, knowledge to understand how to do that. And so when I thought about those things, I was like, you know what? I'll do it. I'll do it. Because when it all boils down to it for me, it's not about the faces that you see when you see some of the projects, the smiling kids. All that is beautiful. It's the story behind those eyes is what I think about. What have those eyes behold? What have they seen? And if I'm frustrated or I'm trying to live up to somebody else's, somebody else has done, and I don't follow my heart and help somebody out, then I don't help that person have that smile on their face. Even though their story is what it is, the story still is what it is for a lot of those kids. But when you can make those kids smile and give them glimmer of hope, hopefully that'll project them into something great. So I just encourage you to continue on doing what you're doing, no matter how small you think of what you're doing is.
So anybody who's traveled the world will know that the most honest and objective opinion you can get in a new city is from a taxi driver. And I asked several taxi drivers about Brian Dawkins. Not one of them said he's a great player. Every one of them said he's a great man and a great player. You might not have built a hospital, you've built an extraordinary legacy and reputation, and thank you for being with us here today. You're a shining example of sports. And to my large and terrified friend on the right, we see a lot of sportsmen, a lot of athletes post-career. They do get involved, they lend their name to charities, they speak at events, they come and they do get involved. But it's not often that you see somebody who gets their hands quite as dirty as you have with School of Hard Knocks, getting stuck in at the ground level. It really is inspiring. It's great to see. And I think everybody here may have seen you at the start as a sports star. They're now identifying with you as somebody who's doing the same sort of work that they are. And I think that means a lot. So to our two-star guests today, Brian Dawkins and Will Greenwood, thank you very much.
Thank you.